Our today's topic is on being remote and how to stay productive in a remote environment. I'm going to tell you a little bit of background about myself so that you actually believe I know what I'm talking about. I'm currently doing two gigs. One is, I always forget about this. One is being the team lead for a mobile team in TopTel. TopTel is a 100% remote company, as in there are no offices anywhere in the world. My second gig is, this is a very meta slide, is Dexet. And this is a screenshot of Dexet in Dexet. And this is also a remote gig. Everything happens in Berlin, and I'm the one here in Warsaw doing all the development. And speaking of which, I actually have a license to hand out of Dexet after this presentation, and it will go to the person who asked the best question. However, what I would like you to not do is to compete to be the person with the best question, because otherwise we might not leave this place till tomorrow morning. But coming back to on being remote, who of you here works remotely 100%? Not bad. Who can, at least in some degree, partially work remotely? Raise your hands. Okay, so I assume everyone else works at an office, yes? I hope so. Even though, or unemployed, yes. Even though this is aimed mostly at people who work remotely, most of the things I'm going to tell you today can also be applied to working at an office. However, bear in mind that they will be told from a perspective of a person who works remotely. To people who can work remotely full-time or in some degree, I want to say that you are in an extremely unique position, as you can shape your own style of work. You are no longer bound to the 9 to 5 hours of an office. You are no longer bound to how work at office looks like. And that's great, because everybody's different. And what works for other people might not work for you. Perhaps you hate open spaces. Who hates open spaces? Raise your hands. Exactly. You can just escape that if you hate it. And you can adapt your own style so that you are as productive as possible. And our today's presentation will actually be a journey through the topic of being productive and productivity. And there can be no productivity without focus. So the actual topic of our today's presentation is focus on focus, how to be productive in a remote environment. And what I will share with you are some strategies that I wrote down and applied to my work that allowed me to become much more productive. Most of them are just mind tricks that will help you get into focus faster and easier. However, bear in mind that this might not work for everyone, because again, everybody's different. And some of them might seem extremely obvious or tedious or stupid, but they do work. So let's see what they are. And let's start with the first one. Clean desk. I know this sounds stupid, but it works. Start your day with having a clean desk. Make sure that there are no things that scream for your attention. I actually, when I was preparing this presentation, I came back to the notes that I wrote down some time ago on how can I be productive. And the first note said, clean your desk. And of course, what did I forget to do? Clean my desk. And my desk, after a while, became a mess. So after I prepared those slides, it was a couple of weeks ago, I started cleaning up it again. And I felt how much better I can work in the initial hours when I start my day. Next up, specific location. If you work remotely, and this applies mostly to people who work remote only, if you work remotely, find the best place that works for you for your work. Be it your home, a co-working space, a private office, maybe it's a cafe, maybe you want to work at library because, hey, you like everything to be quiet and you want to go there and do your work there. However, find your best spot. I personally had a huge journey that took me from working at home, then trying cafes, then going to a co-working space for a very short period of time. Then I had an office for a couple of months, and then I came back home. And I think home, in the end, works for me the best. So search for the best thing that works for you. Why is this so important? Well, once you find that place, stick to it so that your mind thinks, if I arrive at this place, if I get to my desk, if I get to my co-working space, this means it's going to be work. This means I will be starting doing something and I will need to get into focus. And this small trick will make it easier after a couple of weeks for you to focus on your work. Next up, have a starting ritual. A specific task that you do always, every morning before you start your work. This will, again, make a signal to your brain. This is the moment when I'm going to work. And it will make it easier for you to focus on your work. For instance, for me, my morning ritual is, of course, coffee. I make myself a huge bowl of alternative drip coffee, which I then, of course, devour at the desk. And of course, cleaning up now, because I totally forgot about that, and now I came back to doing it. So now, we arrived at the place where we work, we cleaned our desk, we have the huge bowl of coffee, so we can start working. And there are those things, those horrible things, that keep us away from being productive, that keep us away from being focused on what we want to do. And those things are called distractions. We all hate distractions. We all hate that moment when someone approaches you or something and breaks up your focus. And then you need to get back into the zone. You need to remember what you've been working on. It's so hard. It takes time. Oh, so much wasted time. And at this point, you probably wonder, what the hell? Why is there a dog there? The answer is simple. When I was preparing this deck, I actually already applied the strategies, and I managed to eliminate most of the easier things to eliminate that broke up my concentration. And then I thought, what is the one single most distracting thing I have in my work? Behold, my dog. Because this lovely animal screams for attention. It wants to play all day. If he doesn't want to play, then he barks at other dogs. He runs around, and it's annoying. And what I'm trying to say here is that you will face different challenges, and there is no silver bullet that will allow you to get rid of all distractions. However, I can share some tips with you. How can you combat the most popular ones? And the first tip that I'm going to share with you is do this, seriously. There is this nice little menu which says do not disturb. Once you start your work day, turn that on. Turn it on your phone and on your watch. What I do when I start my work, I turn all notifications off. I cannot be reached via phone, I cannot be reached via text messages, iMessages, Facebook Messenger, whatever you think of. I am just unreachable. And this has made a huge change for me in terms of how can I focus and how much value I can deliver in one day. Block any sort of social media services. They are time devourers. I know it's going to be hard, and what I can recommend initially is time box it, as in find certain hours where you can allow yourself to actually go on social media, but try to avoid them as much as possible. I had this horrible notion where when I faced a more complicated challenge and my mind wasn't really focused enough, I would just snap back to Facebook or Twitter and waste like 20-30 minutes on Facebook and Twitter, and it was just horrible. And I had to combat that, and I did, and now I'm way better in terms of working. Another thing that I very strongly recommend, and I can't underline how much this is useful, is buy yourself a noise-canceling headphones. Seriously, no matter where you work. If you work at home, it's going to cut out the children playing in the playground. If you work at an office, it's going to cut out other people. If you are at a cafe, it's going to cut out people in the cafe. It's so many ways you can apply these, and they've been invaluable to me in staying focused. Next thing I want to talk about is Slack. And we all use Slack. Who does not use Slack here? One person. Do you use HipChat? Maybe Skype. Anyway, no matter what sort of communicator you use, they all have the same rules. And the most important thing for you to remember, don't expect other people to answer immediately. Perhaps they're super focused right now and they want to build the next great thing, and you're trying to get them, you're bashing at their screen, trying to grab their attention. Wait. And again, turn off all Slack notifications. When I work, I basically either turn Slack off and just launch it the moment I want to check whether there are some messages that are important to me, or I mute all the channels so that I don't see when someone is writing to me. What's also super important is that other people should not expect you to answer immediately. They might, and if they do, you should explain to them how this can affect your workflow and how negative this can be on your productivity. Tell them that there will be a moment throughout the day when you will sync up with them. What I do, I basically told my team that I mostly turn off from the internet when I actually do work, and there are certain time slots when I sync up with the rest of the team, and when I tell them my problems and they tell me my problems. And honestly, being a team lead, if I didn't do this, I would be basically bashed with questions through the whole day, and I wouldn't deliver anything valuable except for like connecting people with each other. Next thing, have a scheduled time when you do work. Again, this sounds pretty tedious, but you might see a pattern here. Like, we tell our brain that we're gonna work because coffee. We tell our brain we're gonna work because it's a specific location. We're telling our brain we're gonna work because, hey, it's the time for work. And all these simple tricks, when they add together, they make it easier for you to focus on your work. And of course, it helps you get into habits of when you start your work. You might think, this is stupid. If I work remotely, why can't I just like use whatever time slots I want? And that's true. Like, use whatever time slot works for you. But break it up into sessions that occur at more or less the same time. For instance, I try to work in 3 sessions way, where I start my day around 8 a.m. and I have 3 hours session. Where I just cut myself out and do my work. Then I have a little bit of sync up with the team, an hour or two of work, another sync up, and an hour or two of work. And that's basically my day. And this, again, has helped me become super productive, and my team doesn't really cry that I'm not in sync with them all the time. And one of the last slides I'm going to show you is actually a quotation that a friend of mine told me a couple of years ago. And it struck me as very real. And the quotation says that your will is a finite resource. Each time we drive ourselves to do something that is against our habits, each time we force ourselves to do something we don't really want to do, we draw from this resource. And of course, as every resource, it can be depleted. And the same applies to being productive. If you force yourself into being too productive for too long, this resource will be gone, and you will no longer be able to deliver the quality you used to deliver. So what's important is rest. Take some days off. Remember that weekends are for you to rest, not to go through another coding session. Try to work around 8 hours a day and not extend that. There is a reason why 8 hours a day works pretty well for humans to work. And remember that your mind is still working even though you might be resting. I actually have a pretty cool story about this that happened to me when I started working remotely some time ago. And the story is this, that I had a very, very complicated architectural problem to solve. And I was really struggling. I had no idea how to do that. And my mind was not working properly. And there I am sitting in front of my computer and like, hell no, I'm not gonna do this. And then I thought, wait a second, like nobody cares if I'm actually in front of computer. I can just like do whatever I want. So I just stood up, I go out, I walked around for a while, then I came back and I played Far Cry Primal on PS4 for about 30 minutes, and then I felt, okay, I feel good now, I can go back to work. So I went to my computer and the solution was in my head. Because even if you're not actively thinking on the problem, our brains are constructed in a way which will make your brain work on the problem. So remember to rest. And almost the last quotation, but almost the last slide that I have, is a very, very strong quotation, and it's also very old, which says that we who cut mere stones must always be envisioning cathedrals. And it's a quarry worker's creed from medieval ages. What this means is that even though you might be building the most tedious thing this day, or maybe the stupidest from your perspective task, remember that it is always a part of a bigger thing. Care about what you're building. Care about the smallest piece of your work. Take pride in what you build. Changing this attitude can do wonders to your motivation and how you can focus on solving an issue. Because even though maybe at the moment you're just cutting a stone, you're building the stupidest piece of your app, you're actually building a piece of the bigger thing, of the actual product you will be shipping in a few months, weeks, or maybe very, very soon. And the last thing I want to tell you is try to measure this. I know this is very ephemeral and it's going to be hard for you to come up with a way to know this is working, or maybe shit, this is not the way I should be working. What I did, I just took notes after day when I started applying this, and I just compared, and after a month I noticed that, hey, I can even feel that I'm more productive because it's easier for me to snap into focus and snap out of the focus. And of course, find what works for you, because everybody's different. And now, since you're working remotely, you can find this best thing that works for you. Thank you very much. That would be everything. The last slide I actually have for you is inspiration. Actually, most of the points I told you today are taken from a great book, which is called Deep Work by NEWPORT, and I strongly recommend you to read at least 2/3 of it. Afterwards, it gets slightly boring, but the initial 2/3 are amazing, and they literally change the way I work. So thank you very much, and now the questions. Are there any questions? Yes?
Which way do you explain your clients your day is off, working day is off?
So the question is, how do I explain my clients when my work day is off? And I just don't respond. And they know.
Okay.
And if I feel like, okay, I can like keep on doing this, then I just respond, and they're not angry.
They beg you for 15 minutes only, or 5 minutes no.
That you just have to ignore that. Like, it doesn't work, because then like you give them 15 minutes, and then next time they're gonna come. Well, could you like allocate 30 minutes for me? And then like you're gonna give them a finger, and then they're gonna take whole hands. So it's always like a matter of being a strong-willed person. If I have a client like that, that's pretty annoying. Then I basically tell him like, dude, come on, like it's off my working hours. I can happily respond to you in the morning, but now it's basically my time to regenerate. So no.
Really important, no.
Sorry, like my time off, I need to regenerate. Yes.
Have you guys had any discussions in the team around people feeling that they're blocked because you're just offline, no notifications, and they're like, oh, but I really want to ship this, I want to get it out now, and if I can't do that right now, I'm blocked and I can't work on anything else? Is that something that has come up?
Not really, no. Like, we have pretty good planning, so we know what's up front of us, and like we do those sync ups every roughly 2 hours. So in the worst case scenario, you're going to be blocked for 2 hours, and then you can just work on the next thing from backlog. So this has never come up. If there is like something super extremely important, there is a red button that only my manager knows how to press, and he has never done that because he believes in the same principles as I do.
Have you like synced this on the team? Like everyone's always at the same time doing the sync up? Because like people may have different rhythms, right? So I may prefer to work 4 hours in one go, like you may prefer 2 hours in one go, and then.
It's more like not that we have an unofficial sync up, as in like we say, okay, after 2 hours we go online, but we just, I have this notion where after 2 hours I go online and see whether there has been some message to me, and then if there was, then I just respond. And I know that other teams, people on my team, they do this as well. There's one person that is actually always online, and I would advise him not to do that, but that's the way he rolls. Does that answer your question? Cool, thank you. There was one question here, yes.
So I already tried most of the aids you provided, and it works quite well for me. But I noticed that after a couple of days or weeks working like that, and I noticed that this is common not only for me, I feel lack of contact with other people. And I wonder if you have some hints about, I don't know, building a relationship with the team you're working with, or something like that, because usually when you work in the office, it's not only like a focus time. When you go to cafe, like have a chit chat about something, not really directly connected to work, etc.
Yeah.
How do you handle that?
Yes. So I think the question was, how do I handle loneliness if I work remotely?
Yeah, it could be like that.
Yeah. This will be pretty private, what I'm going to say. So as you already know, I have a dog. And no, I really talked to him for a very long time, so this is not the funny part. As you also probably recall, I told you that I was first working from the office, then I moved to a very short episode of being in a co-work, and then I went to work to an actual office with real people, just that I had a room with Philip over there. And the reason why I did the office thing is because I caught myself that I synchronized my time when I walk my dog with the same time that the very talkative old lady walks her dog, so that I can have some actual real interaction with a human. And when I understood that this is actually really happening, I thought I need an office. And I got an office, but then fortunately my wife got pregnant and now she's at home, so I'm back at home and I don't really feel loneliness. But this totally does happen. And I know that people, they try doing co-working spaces, they try going out to cafes to just like feel that there are other people around them. And that was a pretty depressing feeling. I do agree that this happens. And I don't have any silver bullet how to solve that. Yes?
It's not a silver bullet, but I work with 2 other people who live in Canada. And one of the things we've started doing recently is doing a FaceTime call in my afternoon, their morning, for 2 or 3 hours where we just work with the phone, with the line open. We can chat back and forth whenever we want, but there's no scheduled discussion or anything like that. It's like kind of like being in an office, but not really.
Yeah. So what Scott said is that what people sometimes do, they have like some sort of video communicator where they can hang out together. And I know that's at Tactile there is I think people from certain teams have like a Google Hangout channel open where they can just go on and everyone, or maybe not everyone, but a lot of people are on the channel. They can look at other people actually working. And this might work for them. Like for me, this doesn't work. I just feel awkward if I feel like someone might be watching me from my cam when I work. So again,
we just use audience.
Yeah, everybody's different. So you gotta find what works for you.
Thanks.
Cool. Yes?
Back in 2015, when our current president got elected, he decided to live and work at the presidential palace, unlike previous presidents who worked at presidential palace and lived in Belvedere. And then I read an interview with a business psychologist who told that for your mental well-being, it's recommended to work at least of at least 5 minutes of walk, a steady walk from your home, so that you have an off switch between work time and off time. So I see how you try to emulate that with that ritual every morning. But could you comment on that?
Yeah, so I think the question is, how does working at the same place where I live affect my mental health?
Well, more or less.
Yeah, just look at me, come on. No, I'm just joking. I don't know, initially it felt weird, and then I had this episode with the old lady and walking dogs. That was weird, yes. Yeah. But honestly, I feel good now. I love working from home. And what I really love about it is that I no longer need to commute. And if I want to go out somewhere, I can just go out. If I want to play with my dog, to get my mind off of the work, I can do that. If I want to spend an hour with my wife, I can just stop working and go spend time with my wife. So there are certain benefits that, for me, they outweigh the cons of having the same place.
The question would be better, but if it weren't before the prior one. But if it weren't for your current situation, would you still work at the office, even remotely?
Okay, so I think the question, if my wife was not at home, whether I would still work at home, probably not. Yes, that was pretty depressing, being home alone for a whole day only with a dog. That can get down to you. So yes, I would probably find an office, or maybe do what was suggested here with the Hangout thing or FaceTime thing, so that I can actually talk with other people. Cool. Any other questions? Yes?
Do you use some apps, tools for time management, or
No. No.
And for productivity measurement?
No. No, I just use stopwatch in my phone to see how much time I spend focused, and that basically works for me. But I know there's tons of productivity. I know that these techniques, they work really well with Pomodoro, because this basically is the same. You cut yourself out for a chunk of time and then you work. And of course, the values that I told you, the 4 or the 2, 3, and then 1, 2 hours of my chunk working and getting off the grid, are arbitrary values that I picked for myself, and they work the best. But I do see people having 25 minutes being the best value that they can use. Yes?
How you measure your productivity?
Oh, it's very ephemeral. You can't measure it with code, because if I
know, but that's questions.
Can we talk about this afterwards? Because this is a very lengthy topic, and
because I try and try to fail.
Yeah, because it's not something you can put a finger on. Today I was productive, and the other day I was not productive. What I did most of the time when I was preparing this technique, I basically just took notes. Today I felt good. Actually, this book has an answer for you, because our minds are wired in a way that when we had a productive day, at the end you'll feel good. As in I accomplished something, I built something. So you can measure your productivity by checking at the end of the day whether I feel good with what I built this day. Or, oh shit, I wasted half of the day browsing Facebook because whatever. So I basically did that, and I could see how my perspective improved over the weeks as I applied this technique. Does that somehow answer your question? Cool, we can talk more about it afterwards. Cool. Any other questions? Okay, then that's it. Thank you very much for attending.